This weekend, A1GP breaks new ground, staging its first ever event at the Zhuhai International Circuit in China. Championship leaders Switzerland arrive on the back of a double victory in Malaysia, where Neel was quite superb.
And it's go! And Switzerland get away well. Good start by Neel.
Fantastic driving, both drivers doing a great job.
And they've done it, the double here at Sepang International Circuit.
Oliver Jarvis keeps his seat in the British car. He'll be hoping for better luck after a very exciting but ultimately frustrating experience in Sepang.
Oh, that's a great move. Great Britain into second place.
Oh, again, he does it precisely when he's into Canada.
Oh, they touch!
It's round 4 in the third season of the A1GP, and today it's qualifying live from the Zhuhai International Circuit in China. Hello everyone, A1GP celebrated its 50th race in style 3 weeks ago with a sensational feature race in Malaysia. And this weekend it moves into new territory as all 22 drivers will be taking on the unknown of the Zhuhai International Circuit. With me to see how they get on is our regular pundit and motorsports expert, Tony Jardine. Tony, a new track for most of the drivers. There are one or two that have been around here some time ago, of course. What are the unique possibilities this weekend?
Well, first of all, the first turn is very, very tight. They're going to have the funnel effect. I think drivers have been trying to acclimatise. It's very bumpy. It's green on the first few days. A lot of dust down there, heat. Dry grass apparently as well. So I think it's going to be pretty spectacular because they're all going to be trying extremely hard. But for Zhuhai itself, it's a great opportunity to get outside of the world just of FIA GT, which has been running regularly since '93.
They were a bit unlucky really, weren't they, when the Grand Prix moved up to Shanghai up the road and Zhuhai got left in the cold. But now A1GP has come here and it's a big weekend, particularly for the Chinese, because Frankie Chang surely must fancy his chances here, the local man.
Yeah, he's done very, very well. He's one of my particular favourites. He's run for Manor Motorsport. He was on the McLaren driver, young driver scheme, etc. And I was actually talking to Mark Hines, remember the ex-British F3 champion and driver coach. He's particularly just coaching Frankie. And he said, watch for him this weekend. He's going to be hot. He's going to be good. And I think because it's China and it's his home race, he wants to do so well. As long as he can keep his cool and deliver, I think he'll have a good result.
What about the situation regarding this weekend, particularly with the spinners early on? We had quite a lot of crashes off in the first practice. Everybody looking for some advantage, trying to find out the do's and don'ts of Zhuhai. A lot of people off. Yeah,
there were a lot of people off. Duval went off, Loïc Duval. I mean, he's never made a mistake at all in A1GP. We saw Michael Ammermüller, he was spinning. We saw Tomáš Enge going off the track regularly, and it just shows how dirty it is, how bumpy it is. The braking distance are very, 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 very long. You need great judgment. That's what Carroll said, and you've got to get on the throttle early. So there's lots of problems for them, and that's why I think it's going to be dramatic.
A lot to play for then here in China. Let's take a look at the points table going into today. And Switzerland on 61 points from France on 53, New Zealand 46, the Netherlands on 39, 37 for South Africa, Great Britain on 36, 31 for Ireland, Brazil on 22, Mexico 17, and China looking to get big points here if they can. They're on 16. Well, it's time we crossed to Zhuhai City and caught up with our reporter Lee McKenzie, who's the latest ahead of qualifying.
Thanks very much, Keith. Hello and welcome to Zhuhai, a new addition to the A1GP calendar. And I can safely say it's been very well received by both teams and drivers alike. All A1GP teams coming here cold, getting data for the first time. Some drivers have been here before, though. Carroll, for example, has raced here, although that was in 1999. One driver who's based out in Asia, but who hasn't driven here before, is Great Britain's Oliver Jarvis. Ollie, first impressions of this track?
Yeah, it's a nice venue. The track, a lot of the corners are very similar. There's 5 quite large braking zones, so it could be very tough on brake wear, but also quite difficult to get the best out of the new tyres, I think.
Now, things didn't go quite so well for you yesterday. Have you sorted those problems?
Yeah, we had a difficult day yesterday in the second session. I think we made a few changes for today. Car looked a little better, but it's going to be very tough out there in qualifying.
Now, realistically, what can you expect from qualifying today? I know drivers always want to be at the front. Is that possible?
Yeah, no, definitely possible. I think we ended the session 7th fastest. A few of them may have put new tyres on. So I think we've got a good chance to at least be sort of top 5, top 3.
Oliver, thanks very much for joining us. Well, Team Ireland were quickest yesterday, not so quick this morning. Team France have been absolutely flying. But look out for local lad, Frankie Chang. He may be a resident now of Sheffield. He's from Beijing and he's been very quick round here all weekend. Back to you.
Thanks, Lee. Well, so this will be a brand new experience for the A1GP drivers, and who better to show them the best way around this Zhuhai International Circuit than John Watson? But first, here's Lee again.
Zhuhai Circuit is a new addition to the A1GP calendar, so who better to show John Watson the track than Team China's Frankie Chang.
Frankie, coming down into turn one, it looks a pretty straightforward kind of corner to me. It's about braking, turning, and then getting on the throttle.
Yeah, John, you're absolutely right. And approaching T1, driver really needs to know exactly where they brake and where the minimal speed comes and acting out very fast.
So you get into turn one, and of course there's a second part to this corner. Which is the most important part, the first part or the second part?
I think as long as the driver understands that which line they are taking will provide the best grip and make sure that they have a good exit speed. That is most essential, the key of the circuit.
So really you're focusing the car set up to get the best drive out of these corners.
Yeah, definitely.
Frankie, when you come up to the completion of a lap here at Zhuhai, you've got turn 14, and that's one of those corners that looks to me like it's going to give the driver that feeling of being what a racing driver is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a really most challenging corner of the circuit, and also the last corner, putting a lap together, very important to get this corner right. And not also the exiting speed is very important for this corner. If I'm getting closer with any other driver in front of me, I may use this opportunity to use the power boost, try to overtake them.
At 4.3 kilometres in length and 14 corners, the Zhuhai circuit could be almost purpose-built for an A1GP car. And it's into turn one where the braking performance will be tested. Then it's the traction out of turn two that puts the emphasis on the back of the car. Flat out through three, then into turn four, another second gear corner. Bring the car back to the right-hand side of the racetrack and then make your apex back on the throttle, accelerating up through the gears, second, third, fourth, flat out in fifth gear through turn six, watching for the bumps on the exit, and then again hard on the brakes down to second gear for turn 7. The exit of this corner always greets you earlier than you expect, but once again another straight up through the gears, a flick through turn 8, and then back onto the brakes for turn 9. Position of the car here is critical because it is turn 10 that really is the important corner of these two. But watch on the exit for the curbing. People will drop a wheel off there. They'll kick sand on the racetrack. You don't want to be following a driver who's doing that. Up to turn 11 and then the blend into turn 12. Just be smooth, gentle on the throttle. Don't be too aggressive. And now we're on to the part of the racetrack that is the driver's treat. Turn 14. Brake at 80 metres. Down to fourth gear, place the car accurately, stay off the curb on the inside, you can run the curb on the exit, and a lap complete of Zhuhai.
What, he always enjoying himself, and Zhuhai this time round in an A1GP car. It's good work if you can get it, TJ. I bet you'd like to be doing that. Let's talk about Team GBR if we can. Been a bit of a struggle for them the last round or two, hasn't it?
It has, because I'm a big fan of Oliver Jarvis. Tremendous driver. You know, he brought them their first victory. He got the breakthrough for Team GPR because they've always been the bridesmaid for a long, long time. And they got that breakthrough. But in the last particular race, they fell back. You know, he touched on the first bend. He had wing problems. Then Ammermüller took him out. Then he got a penalty in the pit lane and dropped back to 12th place at the end of it. So they struggled somewhat. I'd like to see them come back in. The other thing is Robbie Kerr's no longer around. And we've got Danny Watts in here. So,
good driver, Danny Watts, though. I think very underestimated. And I mean, in the first practice session, he was quick.
Yeah.
Very quick.
Yeah. Well, he's always been quick. He was fantastic in British F3 and Formula Renault. And he's another one, basically, like Mark Hines, who makes a very good living from being a driver coach as well as a journeyman and getting one-off drives. You've seen him in Macau, haven't you, when he races the Porsche Carreras over there, etc. And he's a really fast driver, underrated. And as you said, he was quicker than Oliver.
Well, it'll keep Oliver Jarvis honest. I always think having a fast teammate, in inverted commas, is always a good thing.
Yeah, but I'm a bit worried about Oliver Turvey because he's been here in the studio with us and he's meant to be the reserve driver. Obviously, there are some clashes because he's doing a lot of testing now for British F3 because he's got a fully sponsored drive for next season in 2008. But they've got strength in depth. What I worry about is they keep swapping drivers around, and that you need consistency, as was shown last year by Team Germany.
Well, we'll see how GBR do in just a moment, of course. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, the first of the qualifying sessions gets underway from China. Welcome back to Zhuhai. We're just about ready for the first of the 4 qualifying sessions. Remember that under the season's rule changes, the fastest lap time for this qualifying session and session 2 will be decided the grid for the sprint race. Let's join our commentators John Watson and Ben Edwards at trackside.
So we're just moments away now from the first of 4 qualifying segments here at Zhuhai International Circuit. Remember, the first 2 qualifying segments, each 15-minute segment, will count towards the grid for the sprint race. The second 2 will count towards the feature race, but every team, every driver only gets the 1 flying lap in each of those 4 sessions. Looking down the pit lane, Chris Alajadjian is driving for Lebanon here today, so he's back out for them. Khalil Bashir did drive the car briefly on Friday. Now the pit lane is open, the green flag has been displayed, but no one's decided to go out straight away.
No, there's a reluctance for sending anybody, particularly those that are potential front row sitters, to go out on the racetrack. And a part of the reason for that is we've got some support events here in Zhuhai. We've got Formula 3, we've got GTs, and there's been displays going on track of motorcycles and sliders, those drifters that we see from time to time. And the consequence of all that is that the rubber, the Cooper rubber that gets laid down by the A1GP cars is getting overlaid with the rubber from Formula 3 and GTs. Consequence is the first maybe 5 minutes of any session, the track conditions will be different to those that were left by the A1GP car. So no one really wants to go out to tell everybody, yes, the track isn't quite as quick as it was, for example, when all these cars came in after their 1 hour run out this morning.
Let's quickly go through the driver lineup today. It's Ian Dyke driving for Australia, Sergio Jimenez for Brazil, Robert Wickens, the youngster who came in impressively for Canada, is back here, Frankie Chang for China. We've got Thomas Enge for the Czech Republic, Loïc Duval for France, Michael Ammermüller for Germany. Then it's Oliver Jarvis for Great Britain. Danny Watts was in the rookie session earlier this week. Then we've got Narain Karthikeyan for India, Satrio Hermanto is driving for Indonesia, Adam Carroll for Ireland, Edoardo Piscopo for Italy, so new driver there for Team Italy. Lebanon, as we saw, had Chris Alajadjian, Malaysia, Alex Yoong. For Mexico, another new driver, David Garza, as we got our first car on track. I think it's Team USA, isn't it? Jonathan Summerton heading out onto the track. Yes, it is. We've got Jeroen Bleekemolen of the Netherlands, Jonny Reid for New Zealand, Adam Khan for Pakistan, João Urbano for Portugal, Adrian Zaugg for South Africa, Neel Jani for Switzerland, and here we are, Jonathan Summerton for USA.
Yes, one of 2 cars that ran Utah. And look, there you see, just coming into turn 4, huge amount of dust, sand on the racetrack that's been kicked up by all the other vehicles that have been on track prior to this first of 4 qualifying segments. So if it's bad on one part of the track, you've got to believe it might be bad in other parts. Jonathan Summerton on a set of tyres which he ran in the session this morning. So we're looking at the Team USA team members on the pit wall, and they'll not be the only people watching this lap. It'll be very interesting indeed to see where, in relation to the time he set this morning, which was in fact the second quickest time, 1:24.342, not the quickest lap by far, we saw quicker on Friday afternoon, but where in reality is this racetrack? That's the big question everyone on the pit lane is looking for the answers for.
That's right. Now remember, he's on his out lap at the moment. The clock doesn't start ticking until he comes around across the line. Australia onto the track now as well. This is Ian Dyke, who's been competing for Australia throughout this 3rd season of A1GP so far, and they scored their first points, as did USA actually, in that last race in Malaysia. They both want to score some more points this weekend. Onto the first flying lap goes Team USA, and heading for the first of the heavy braking areas into turn 1.
You've got to brake. If you're soft pad, you can brake late because you've got the feel. If you've got the harder pads in, you've got to brake that little bit earlier because the feel isn't quite there. Other things that were troubling drivers was stability under braking from high speed down to these low speed corners.
Turn 4, this is a tighter left-hander. They use a bit of curve on the outside. That's pretty standard, the line that we saw there from Jonathan Summerton. Another blast in a straight line, up through the gears, another flat-out kink.
Yeah, I mean, it is absolutely flat. I mean, it's easy flat. You don't even think about it. But then exiting the corner, you've got to start thinking about turn 7 because you've got to get the speed off and make sure the curb on the outside, you don't exit the corner too early and run over that rumble strip. That will cost you fractions of seconds.
So now he's 2/3 of the way around the lap and getting a bit of an idea for how much grip is there. Watch him on the exit of this next corner. This is turn 10 where we see them run wide quite often. That was quite a neat and tidy line.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good indeed. But believe me, as we get further into the session and the track gets busier, that corner will be responsible for a lot more dust getting on track. A little bit of a bubble there going through turn 11, then you blend immediately into turn 12, just kicks a little bit more dust on the exit. Now the flat out run down to this final corner, turn 14, 4th gear for me. Some think in qualifying you might be able to sneak 5th. That's pretty quick.
Yeah, that was fast. The 19-year-old Jonathan Summerton about to cross the line, sets the initial pace on 1:26.073. Remember, those tyres did do some running this morning. We would expect guys who've got brand new tyres to perhaps be able to go a little faster than that.
Well, if that time had been done in this morning's session, USA would have ended up 21st of 22 cars.
Right,
so
not a quick time.
No, not a quick time at all. Wait to see Ian Dyke. Now we assume that Australia have gone on a brand new set of tyres. So get an indication if he's quicker than Jonathan Summerton, that may well be the case.
He's already faster at the first sector time, so we'll see how he's doing at the second one. He's about half a second up at the moment on the time that USA set, but he has got brand new tyres, remember, and that will make a big difference here.
I saw Ian Dyke just running a little bit further down the curve on the exit of turn 10, kicking up that little bit of dust. And of course, as the clock keeps ticking, we're under 10 minutes of the session, remaining 9 minutes and 45 seconds. If everybody wants to wait until 5 minutes to go, the inevitable is going to happen. You're going to get a busy racetrack and nobody will get a clean run.
Well, Australia really looking for a top 10 qualifying performance. They haven't had one so far this year. Will this set them up for that? Let's see what the time is. A 1:24.770. That's much more like the times we were seeing this morning.
Well, in fact, Australia this morning on used tyres at a 25.2. So Australia have picked up half a second. And that's probably good news for everybody in the pit lane because of half a second over new to used. In fact, for other teams, I think they'll pick up probably the best part of a second.
Now, Adam Khan for Team Pakistan. I spoke to him briefly after this morning's practice. They have switched for this qualifying session from the harder brake pad to the softer, as we were talking earlier.
Yeah, but that does not help. Adam Khan got it wrong in the entry into 14.
It was his outlap though. He's not on his time lap yet, so hopefully that won't actually hurt him too much.
Well, if that's the case, then obviously not. So it is, you say, an outlap for Adam Khan, and I think everybody's been talking to Adam and his father about what should we do and how can we get the car to work for us better. And Adam did struggle a little bit this morning in that 1 hour session, and braking was a big part of that.
Oliver Jarvis for Team Great Britain is sitting and waiting for his chance to come out. He can come out any time. The drivers and teams can decide to use any moment in this 15-minute session. But as the clock ticks away in the top left-hand corner of your screen, you can see that we're getting down towards the halfway stage in this first 15-minute session.
Let's keep an eye on Adam Khan coming into turn 1. This is one of the corners where he did it pretty good there. Nothing wrong with the entry. Gets the power on. He tends to use the throttle quite aggressively and tends to slam it open. And where you're very marginal on grip overall, not so much with a new set of tyres because the grip is there. But showing, let's see that first sector time, 27. Oh, and again, he repeats what he did on that outlap, and it doesn't really do your lap time any good.
First sector is quite quick.
He's up.
Yeah, he's up. He's done a faster first sector than either Australia or USA managed. So he's certainly brave. He certainly is committed, is Adam Khan. But he's just got to control it as well. Let's see how the second part of the lap goes. We've already heard from the pits, by the way, that teams are realising you're going to have to push very hard on that outlap to get the tyres to work on your flying lap.
Yes, I think that was something teams were trying to work out themselves. And again, right, I mean, he does flirt with the edge of the racetrack, waiting for that second sector time to come up.
This was down at turn 4, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's almost taken the Michael doing that, but it served the purpose. It got him that first sector time. Second sector, he's not the quickest. So overall lap time is probably going to be somewhere in the 25s if he can maintain that lap time. In fact, Adam Khan, dear me, he is braver than Dick Tracy.
He is brave.
I should say he's braver than Genghis Khan.
20 across the line. He's gone second, 24.958. That is a good improvement.
That's a 1.2 second improvement, so that's significant for Adam on a lap where he had two clear, run wides. Here we see coming through the final corner, and the car, four wheels completely off the racetrack, but foot is buried right against the block stops.
Absolutely. Now Indonesia on track, and for once Satrio Hermanto has the chance to relish a circuit that he knows quite well. All the other tracks that he's been to pretty much this year have been new to him, has a little bit of knowledge of Sepang, but here he does know reasonably well. He's just a bit down on the first split. Lebanon meanwhile out on track, and Germany. Now this is the first perhaps of the potential front row winners. Team Germany very, very fast in Malaysia and looking pretty good so far here this weekend.
Yes, and you'd have to think that Michael Ammermüller, clearly a candidate for a front row grid position, first or second row grid position. He's got natural speed. He's not in a race here, so he's not looking to try and do some of the brave, or some might say daft manoeuvres that he attempted in Malaysia. He'll want a clear track. He got past that car coming out of the pit lane pretty quickly to ensure that he did have a clear track, as we see Indonesia come through. A much different exit for Indonesia out of the final turn, goes third quickest.
So it's Australia fastest, Pakistan second, Indonesia third, and USA paying the price for using a new set of tyres this morning. They are going to surely end up pretty much slowest in this session, but it doesn't matter. There's another session
Absolutely.
to go.
They've got fresh tyres for this second segment of sprint qualifying, so they'll sit back as we look into the Team China pits. Now, Mexico coming out, Ireland behind.
Starting to get busy now.
It's going to be busy, and this is always the problem. We've got 5 minutes of this session remaining, and we've only had 4 cars out of 22 complete a timed lap. Brazil coming out behind Sergio Jimenez, who really was spectacular in Malaysia, and equally spectacular here this morning.
Just seen Germany go past, and managed to get past Lebanon on that lap. There you are. So that's important from Michael Ammermüller's point of view. He managed to nip past Chris Alajajian, so he's got clear track for the moment. It's a question of whether he catches any of those cars that have just come out the pits.
From an engineering perspective, Lebanon are assisted by the engineering that helps Germany and others in the pit lane. So one might have thought there was a little bit of cooperation from Chris Alajajian to let the potentially quicker Michael Ammermüller through. But, I mean, Lebanon's hanging in. They're not really all that far behind.
Good first sector, and 27.390. That's the fastest sector time so far in purple. So Ammermüller on target here to take the fastest time, but that's no great surprise because Australia quickest at the moment haven't shown in the top 10 so far. So we'll see, but we're waiting for some of the other quick runners to come out. New Zealand, by the way, are now on a hot lap as well, so that will be crucial to see how Jonny Reid gets on for New Zealand in his first attempt. We've got other quick cars, India out there with Narain Karthikeyan as well, so we are beginning to see some of the heavy hitters on circuit.
So out of turn 12 and then the run down, it's about 500 metres from turn 12 all the way down to turn 14. There is a curve there which is turn 13. We don't really discuss that because it doesn't come into play, but this zone or this corner certainly does.
Oh, that was nice. Very controlled by Ammermüller. This is going to be a quick lap. He goes fastest. What's the lap time?
23.790.
That's a good one. That is good. It's still not the quickest we've seen of the weekend, though, is it?
No, it's not. We saw 20s. I'll give it to you. 23... I've lost it now. 23.1 I think was the quickest time. 23.2 from Adam Carroll from practice Friday afternoon.
So they've still got a little more to find perhaps, but it all depends on track conditions, and if the track isn't quite quick enough. Very good first sector by Ireland, who we're talking about. So Adam Carroll's on target here. First sector 27.1. That's almost 3/10 quicker than Germany to that point.
Yes, and also it's 4/10 quicker than New Zealand, who are currently India going second, just behind Germany in 24.5. Just waiting to see where New Zealand's coming through. I think they're about to come through now, so New Zealand waiting for the time to come up.
Yep, I think they've gone second. There's a gap on our timing screen, but I think New Zealand's gone second. Italy's popped up to third, so yeah. Italy's done well, but it's Ireland here, John, that really could snatch the time. Still up on the splits, but not quite as much as they were at the first sector point.
No, it's that middle sector. People, Adam Carroll had quickest first sector. Now he comes through this final turn. Watch the car on the exit. Looks very good, very stable.
Yeah, this could be it. Team Ireland looking for provisional pole. He's done it. He's fastest. Ireland go to the top of the timesheet. We've still got another qualifying session to do, and he took it by 0.1 of a second. It is going to be very close. Brazil there, just going over the line. Third quickest for Brazil. It's Ireland, Germany and Brazil. Top three at the moment. Still got some quick guys to go, and at the moment Canada has just gone through the first sector. Netherlands out, China out on track, but not yet on a hot lap.
No, we've got basically the rest of the field are all going out on track. There we see China, Frankie Chang. So behind, locking up Rob Wickens for Canada.
Pretty good lap this. It's not quite as quick as Ireland's, but he's up there in a battle for the top 4, I should say.
Well, he's about a tenth of a second down that first segment on Ireland, and this could see them just sneak between Ireland and Germany, certainly between Germany and Brazil. So potential third quickest time for Canada.
Let's see what it is. And he goes third, so that is a very quick time from Robert Wickens, and this new young superstar for Team Canada, again showing his potential. Team China on track. Host nation, Frankie Chen, going well this morning. His aim, he told us, was to be in the top 6 in qualifying.
And he's got a nice, clear track, and the track is cleaning up pretty well. That little bit of dust on the entry to turn 4, not a factor anymore. Frankie Chang being a lot more economical on the exit of turn 4 than we've seen others. So climbs up through turn 6, back on the brakes, down into turn 7. Good
first sector. He's only a tenth down on the best to that point, so he's on target. It depends a lot on this second sector now as to whether he can be in the challenge for a top 3 position. Remember, it's Ireland fastest, Germany second, Canada third, Brazil 4th, New Zealand 5th. Little lock up on the left front. Didn't really lose time, I think, through it though. He stayed on line.
Just feathering the throttle a little bit going through turn 10. That's always a corner. You've got to decide either to put a high gear and let it pull or just balance the car on the throttle in third gear.
He's still on target for a top 3 here. Not, I don't think, enough to beat Ireland's time, but he's still on target for top 3.
Interesting, even the Czech Republic was quicker through that second sector than China was.
It's going to be tight. Let's see what happens. Checker flag about to come out, but still a few cars to come through. Neat and tidy through the final corner. Ireland on provisional pole at the moment, and China goes third. So it's Ireland, Germany, now China third. Canada pushed back to 4th, Brazil in 5th.
This is a car to watch, a driver to watch. Loïc Duval for France. They were quickest in that segment, or this section this morning. So Loïc Duval, very confident, got the car tuned in, but disappointing.
Only 7th. Yeah, that is a surprise. Maybe they'll be better on another set of tires. Switzerland in there in 5th. South Africa just going through, and that's disappointing. 13th for Zaugg. Great Britain in 12th. That's a surprise.
2 big surprises, especially Team GBR. Oliver Jarvis has never really felt fully settled. If you watch João Albano, who was really off the track a lot this morning, but getting composed, finishes 15th. Checker flag is out, and all 22 cars have now completed the time.
It's Ireland fastest after the first segment of qualifying here at Zhuhai in China. Germany second quickest, and the host nation third, with Canada 4th and Switzerland 5th. Brazil in a strong 6th place. Then New Zealand and France, who we expected to be right up front. Then the Netherlands as well, surprisingly down in 9th place, with Italy. That's a great effort from Edoardo Piscopo for Italy, because he's gone 10th in his first ever qualifying run in an A1GP car. Tomáš Enge for the Czech Republic is 11th so far, so some interesting performances to look at. But there is Adam Carroll, and he certainly has delivered. Fastest on Friday afternoon, fastest in the first session of qualifying.
Well, that's a little bit of confirmation from what we did see in official practice session 2. That was on Friday afternoon. Adam Carroll and Team Ireland got that advantage. They had it by almost half a second over Canada, car, and a nation that share information and engineering with Ireland. So Adam Carroll, who really didn't feature very much here this morning, was all the way down in 16th place, but the team said, look, we were just a bit worn tires, we weren't going to learn very much. We did certain things, a little bit of housekeeping, you might describe it, to ensure that when we go into both qualifying but primarily into the sprint and feature races, we've got all our work carried out.
So Ireland on top with Adam Carroll at the moment. Michael Ammermüller is second for Germany, then it's China in third. They're followed by Canada and Switzerland. Neel, Jani, Switzerland leading the points. They're currently 5th in this qualifying for the sprint race. Ahead of New Zealand and Brazil, France, the Netherlands, and then Italy with the new man, Edoardo Piscopo, and then Tomáš Enge for the Czech Republic. Oliver Jarvis, 12th for Great Britain. They need to find some time there, with India down in 13th. Narain Karthikeyan won't be pleased with that, nor will Adrian Zaugg with 14th. They're ahead of Portugal and Australia. Pakistan 17th. That's a good improvement from Khan. He's ahead of Malaysia, Mexico, Lebanon, Indonesia, and the United States. find a bit of time. As I say, haven't managed to qualify in the top 10 so far this year. If he could just find a few more places, 2 or 3 places from where he is, I think they would be reasonably satisfied. It would show some forward progress. But down there waiting at the moment, Adam Carroll for Ireland, fastest at the moment, and India also trying to see if they can find a way of going a bit quicker.
Well, to put us all into perspective, we're talking about Australia down in 16th place. If they could find half a second, that's an awful lot of time, they'd be in 10th place. So half a second is less than, what, a blink of an eye. That's the difference between being in 10th place, being down in 16th.
Indonesia out earlier as well in this session, and a little bit of work going on board the Canadian car, but Rob Wickens, who went well in that session, 4th quickest so far, and it just goes to confirm what we saw really in Malaysia from this young man. He really has got the talent to just get into a different kind of racing car and be rapid straight away. Jeroen Bleekemolen's got a bit more experience in an A1GP car, of course. He did the whole of season 2, he's done all the races so far in season 3. Down at the Great Britain pit, there must be a little bit of thought and consternation there, because they find themselves down in 12th place.
So Australia comes across the start-finish line to start their first lap in the second segment of qualifying. So Ian Dyke has had the benefit of that first run, and one would suspect that Australia will opt to keep the remaining 2 sets of fresh tyres that they've got for qualifying for the feature race, that they would most likely run the set of tyres they've just been on that first segment of qualifying.
Yeah,
soon know by the sector time.
Yeah, that's right. Although some of the teams, when I've been talking to them, say, well, maybe sometimes it's better to throw your 2 new sets in for qualifying for the sprint race, because of course it's a shorter race, you've perhaps got less opportunities to make up places. Some teams, and you've got as many points now for the sprint race as you do for the feature. So
yes, indeed. So it's really a question of horses for courses.
That's
and
right.
What do you think your best opportunities are going to be? The difficulty in the sprint race is that you don't have the benefit of the pit stops and what can go wrong on those to give you an opportunity. And on a tight racetrack such as we've got in here in Zhuhai, you're going to look for every option to give you that leg up the field that you could possibly find.
So he had a very good first sector, but not quite as quick as the fastest sector times we saw in that first session. Our tiny screens have sort of reset themselves, so they're all establishing new times again on here. But Australia on a sort of similar par, I should think, to the time they did earlier on. Let's see what it's going to be through the final corner. This is where it's easy to run wide, but he keeps it tidy. That was a nice line from Ian Dyke, who sometimes is a bit over brave, but across the line he goes, and in fact it's a very similar time. He's a fraction slower than he was in that first segment.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about hundreds of seconds, but a solid run for Australia. Certainly they will stay in that 16th position, but he is the only car in the second sector of times to have actually run. If we look at Indonesia.
Yes, Satrio Hermanto. These guys could be in danger from USA, because USA, of course, last at the moment, but were on used tyres. Let's just see as he goes across the line, and Indonesia is 17th, and that was a better lap that time by quite a bit.
Yes, 24.893. Still not quite as quick as Australia, so they slot in behind their relative neighbours in the southern hemisphere.
Yeah, they've gained a few places there, Indonesia, so that's good news from them. Ireland sitting and waiting. His advantage only a tenth of a second. I doubt if Adam Carroll's got the luxury with that much margin of being able to sit this session out and just hoping no one goes quicker. I think there will be faster time set, but Ireland may be one of those doing that. They've been quicker already this weekend. Now they need to see if they can find that when it counts. Frankie Chang for China, 3rd quickest so far. Great first effort.
22 cars in the field, 2 have been out. We've still got 20 cars waiting to come out onto the racetrack, and we've just got a little over 10 minutes of the session remaining. And once again, somebody needs to go out. Otherwise, if this track's going to be filled with 20 cars with 5 minutes to go, then the prospect of improvement from anybody is going to be, I would say, greatly reduced.
South Africa need to find something here. They are struggling. They're down in 14th place. What is going on for the man who was on pole position for both races at Zandvoort earlier on this year, and then also pole for one of the races at the Czech Republic at Brno? He's had 1 race victory so far. They were the early season leaders, but it didn't go brilliantly for them in Malaysia. He went off the road in the feature race, and now they seem to be struggling for pace here for some reason in Zhuhai. So definitely need to put their thinking caps on. Australia, meanwhile, has done their slowdown lap and back in the pits.
Yes, and Indonesia coming down the pit lane as well. There we see Sergio Jimenez coming into the pits, and his second lap. 24.8 was a full second quicker than his first, but well, it dragged him up a little bit, but he's still got the prospect, particularly with USA, who really did little more than a sighting lap on a set of tyres that had done a lot of running this morning. And you'd have to imagine that Jonathan Summerton could push himself all the way up, certainly into the top 10 and possibly even higher.
Yeah, and the other one to watch out for a fairly big improvement could possibly be Malaysia, because they ran their tyres for sort of 3/4 of a lap this morning, so they weren't on brand new tyres in that first session, unlike everyone else apart from America here. So that's interesting. Malaysia could pop up from 19th, and here USA could easily pop up from 22nd position. So a little bit of calm before the storm, if you like, because the clock is ticking away. We've only got just under 9 minutes to go, but they're all waiting for the moment to come out. Looks as though Germany could well be out again early. They were relatively early in that first session too.
Yes, they were. As we now see India, Narain, Karthikeyan. Thank goodness somebody has opted to come out onto the racetrack, and now others are following Germany, just you see down the pit lane. So 2 more nations coming out onto the track. Everyone else holding back, and well, we get I think Pakistan coming out. So there's going to be certainly maybe 4 or 5 cars coming out very shortly as Germany heads out onto the circuit. Michael Ammermüller, currently second quickest on a 1:23.790, some just over 2.5 tenths of a second slower than Ireland, who 1:23.675 set the benchmark for the sprint race qualifying.
So definitely getting busier now. Two more cars coming out on track, but France having a little bit of setup change, maybe adjusting the front wing before sending him on his way. Team New Zealand there, Jonny Reid needs to dig deep here. He's down in 7th place, which is not a disaster by any means, but for a nation that's definitely trying to win the title, it's not as good as they would hope. Switzerland up there in 5th place. France in 8th place, so they're up there around their main competitors for points, but New Zealand, we would expect to see them perhaps just a little higher up.
Just looking through the field, had a look into Oliver Jarvis and Team GBR there, and Neel, Jani, and those are the eyes that really shone brightly 3 weeks ago in Malaysia, and Neel, Jani more than capable. This type of circuit, maybe not necessarily the type of circuit that he will shine on. He loved the long flowing curves of Malaysia here. You've got very short corners, brake, and acceleration. Narain Karthikeyan under braking the front of the car, not quite as stable, but Narain, we know he is one of the last of the late breakers.
Let's ride on board with Narain Karthikeyan then, up to 6th gear. Now we can really see these areas here, for example, heavy braking down to 2nd. As you can see from the indicator, accelerates hard. Now he's back up through the gears on that paddle shift behind the steering wheel. Back into 6th gear as he comes through the quick right-hander. Now hard braking again, all the way back down the box.
Tries to get the front of the car in, not really successfully getting the nose right down against the curbing, but good exit out of the corner nonetheless.
Yes, it's good out of the corner, but again, it's so easy to overdrive these corners, and Narain maybe just doing that a little bit. Meanwhile, Germany's on a fantastic lap at the moment, maybe putting the Ireland pole position under threat, although we'll have to see. It's close. Very close, thousandths of a second as we thought. Back with Team India here as Narain Karthikeyan continues his lap, and he could be on target to try and improve a little bit from where he is at the moment, down in 13th.
Yes, so long way to go for India, but Germany did have that very quick first sector. They've also got a quicker second sector than India coming out of the final turn.
So let's see where this puts India. Narain Karthikeyan, as he jumps up to 4th place. Great lap, 1:23.972.
Well, that is more like the kind of performance we expect from India, but watch Michael Ammermüller for Germany.
Again, an excellent exit out of the final turn. He goes fastest. Oh no, he goes 2nd quickest. He's fastest in this session, 2nd quickest on our... That's interesting, actually. I'm just looking at our timing screen. He's got a faster time than Ireland, but for some reason the computer shows him as joint first. Look at the numbers on the left there, John. Now suddenly it's corrected. He has gone fastest, right. So Germany is quickest, and Ireland has been pushed back to 2nd. We're in for a real storming battle now in the closing 5 minutes of the session.
So Germany did get that extra speed, 1:23.203, and that's given them a half a second, well, not quite half a second of an advantage over Ireland. And now Brazil coming down. Sergio Jimenez coming down to the corner this morning where he got it all wrong, but gathered it up well. Lovely exit out of turn 14.
Yeah, where does this put him? Brazil, 7th quickest with a 1:24.2, a fraction slower than his best on the first segment. Here now, New Zealand. No! 8th only for New Zealand. He has not managed to improve. In fact, that was a 10th of a second slower, and that is not what New Zealand needed. So they will start no better than 8th for the sprint race, and it could be lower than that if one of the two of those behind them improves.
So here's the man who's taken that provisional pole time for the sprint race, Michael Ammermüller. And we just got a quick glimpse there of Adam Carroll for Ireland. There he is, Adam Carroll, out of the pit lane into turn 1 on his exploratory lap. So a lot of work for Ireland to do, to dig deep. Adam Carroll's going to have to find the best part of 0.476 or something of a second.
Well, this is going to be fantastic to see whether Belmain Team Ireland can come back and really challenge Team Germany here. France could be a contender. We expected more from them in that first segment. It didn't happen, but maybe there was a mistake we didn't see. And Duval, I think, still could be a threat here. But at the moment, he's way down in 9th place. Don't forget others like Great Britain, South Africa potentially as well. And then Malaysia and USA, who are down at the back at the moment, but again, potentially could move up from there. This grid could change around, but there is the fastest car, Germany, Michael Ammermüller. Well, he certainly caused a stir last time out in Malaysia, but he was fast. He was on the second row of the grid on his debut in A1GP, and right now he's on provisional pole.
Yes, and I think that's going to be a pretty tough time to get close to. In fact, that is the fastest single lap of the weekend of any driver, be it in rookies, practice sessions, or now in qualifying. So Germany and Michael Ammermüller are in control. And Ireland, again, and those tyres that they ran in the first qualifying segment, the track will be better, the track will have cleaned up. Whether there's enough left and life in the tyre, well, we're going to find out now as Adam Carroll goes on to his second qualifying segment.
Here we go then, key lap. Can Ireland retake the initiative from Germany here and snatch back that pole position? That looked pretty good. The car was on the limit under braking, but he was well able to turn it in the right place, clip at the apex, and now he's back up to the next high-speed section before being hard on the brakes. Here comes a whole gaggle of cars. China, Switzerland out on track, USA, cars that could potentially go quickly, also South Africa and Great Britain.
Ireland 3, almost 4 tenths down in that first sector, and that's going to be very difficult to recover from.
Yeah, that's surely too much in the second 2 sectors to come back from. He's a little bit over the curve on the exit, but again didn't lose too much time there as he heads down towards the next section of this track. Adam Carroll still in second place, remember, still could be on the front row of the grid, which would be Ireland's best ever qualifying performance. So it might not be enough to hold pole, but Ireland could still be heading for their best ever qualifying performance in A1GP.
Up into turn 11, off the throttle, turn the car in, and then back hard on the power, just fighting the steering, keeping the back end of the car in control. Now he's really got one corner left to drag a time out. I don't think there's 4 tenths of a second in that one corner, but he might be able to consolidate a front row grid position.
Over the line he comes. Let's see what this does. He's going to stay second. He does. That lap a fair bit slower than his previous best. Now he'll have to sit and wait and see what the others can do, and that includes Canada, but Canada stays in 5th place.
And Canada and Ireland virtually identical lap times, so status quo remains for Ireland now, still in the front row of the grid, Canada on the 3rd row.
France on a lap, and 3 tenths of a second down in the first sector, so France might improve on where they are 9th, but I don't think they're going to challenge for a front row starting position. Yeah, they're all the way down 6 tenths.
So we're going on board with France, but right now China is on a hot lap, so we're keeping an eye on Frankie Chang as we look at Loïc Duval for France.
Yeah, I don't think this is going to be enough to challenge up front, but it could move him up a little further inside the top 10, and that would put New Zealand back down 1 if France goes a bit quicker here. So this is absolutely crucial. Turns in fast there, or just holds it onto the track. Let's see where it puts him across the line. Yeah, he's up to 4th, and that puts New Zealand back down to 9th place, a 1:23.928.
Good run for France. Good job by Loïc Duval. Looked good all the way through this morning's official practice session. Here on board with Frankie Chang. He's got a strong first sector, not the quickest, but he's in the ballpark. But Switzerland is the one that's quick on a 27.1 against 27.3 for China. So Switzerland currently 7th, could leapfrog China and get into the second row of the grid.
That's right. Well, China hoping not to lose any time there as they head round the rest of this lap. They've still got a chance of moving up. I don't think this actually will change China's position, though. His second sector time not so good. And I think China are going to stay 3rd here and then have to watch to see if anyone else moves up, and Switzerland might. Switzerland might move up here because they're on a very good lap. The end of the session signalled by the checkered flag. Switzerland's gone to second and displaced Ireland from the front row, and Great Britain jumps up to 5th. So changes right after the checkered flag has been waved. USA jumps up to 9th place there. Great effort from Jonathan Summerton, and Netherlands takes 7th.
So waiting for the Czech Republic. Czech Republic have gone 6th. Tomáš Enge, great job from Tomáš Enge. He was struggling with that left elbow, which he damaged very badly in America. And he's now got himself up onto the 3rd row of the grid.
That is a stellar effort from Tomáš Enge. Well done to him. China pushed back 1, but that's still pretty good. A 2nd row starting position for Frankie Chang. But it's Germany, Switzerland who will be on the front row of the grid for the sprint race here in Zhuhai. It's Michael Ammermüller's first pole position in only his 2nd event in A1GP. They nicknamed him Hammermüller after his antics in the races there. Well, it's hammer time here because Germany's taken pole for the sprint race. Ireland, who were on pole for a while there, find themselves back in 3rd. But there he is, Michael Ammermüller. He certainly woke people up with his performances and what he did in the races in Malaysia. But there's no doubt he's a star, and he's put Germany back on top, just as Nico Hülkenberg drove this car in last season and scored pole positions and victories. Ammermüller showed that they have lost none of their pace as a team.
Welcome back to Zhuhai. Michael Ammermüller then puts the hammer down. 1:23.203, absolutely brilliant. Neel Jani, equally brilliant. They are the front row of the sprint race. Adam Carroll is bumped back to row 2 with Kung Fu Cheng as well. Oliver Jarvis puts in a quick lap to get himself into 5th place on the grid. Tomáš Enge, Loïc Duval, Jeroen Bleekemolen, Narain Karthikeyan, Robert Wickens, Jonathan Summerton and Sergio Jimenez round out our top 12 as it is at the moment. So, session 3 of qualifying from Zhuhai is coming up. Remember that the fastest lap time of session 3 and 4 will determine the feature race grid. We've just seen the 2 sessions that determine the sprint race grid. And very quick word, an exciting session for you, Tony.
A very exciting session. I'm quite surprised Michael Ammermüller, after all his mistakes in the last race, he's put it together here with his first ever pole. Brilliant.
Let's get back then to John Watson and Ben Edwards in Zhuhai.
Really just are never stopping, and the pressure builds. Although we've now got different types of qualifying this year over the previous 2, nonetheless, it is pressure all the way, and it just builds over the 4 segments.
It's relentless. Australia deciding to come out fairly early on again here for Ian Dyke, and he's on used tyres, and I think we'll see a lot of nations go out on used tyres in this 3rd segment of qualifying. Most of them will have used 2 sets of new tyres in those first 2 for the sprint race, and so this first run may not be quite as indicative. It will all come down to the 4th and final segment of qualifying. Good recovery job from Jarvis there, up to 5th place for GBR after languishing down the order, but there wasn't the recovery that New Zealand was looking for.
No, that is clearly one of the disappointments, and when you consider that Germany and New Zealand again share a crossover of information and car setups, and one can go one way, one can go the other way, and then they amalgamate what they've achieved and work out what way they want to go. But Jonny Reid really, he was off form, off colour in Malaysia. We hope that he'd come back here and continue the progress that he had made up prior to Malaysia, but it's certainly not happening, and that's a surprise and I think a huge disappointment to New Zealand.
Indeed. Well, let's see if they can do something better in this session. We're on board with the Lebanese car here. Chris Alajajian driving for Lebanon once again, and the youngster who's really taken to A1GP pretty well. He's still learning the ropes, but not quite in the same league as this man. But Michael Ammermüller, of course, comes to A1GP with a wealth of international racing experience in top-line single-seaters behind him. So he has taken that and adapted to the car extremely well, and, of course, joined a team that we all know is very strong. Looking at their performances in winning the World Cup of Motorsport last year, there was never any doubting that. So here we go. Ian Dyke is on his hot lap. He's the first of the drivers to go onto their hot laps. Let's see how it looks.
Looks pretty reasonable, runs the car quite a wide coming out of turn 3. I don't know whether it's really necessary to do that, but it does release the car from the corner. It cuts down on the slip angle, and I know Ian Dyke is one of those drivers, he always will use the maximum amount of racetrack, whether it's needed or not, and quite often he lets the car run even beyond that. Great entertainment, but not necessarily the quickest way around a given racetrack, but he's putting in the effort that he needs to. 27.7 was that first sector time, and the best we've seen has been a 27.0, so 3/4 of a second in that first sector is a big bunch of time on this kind of racetrack.
Yeah, I think he's been pretty consistent on that sector. Remember, though, he's on a set of tyres that have already been used for one flying lap in qualifying, so there's a little lock-up into turns 11 and 12. The tight right-handers leading back down towards the start-finish area, and then he's just got that fast right-hander to come that leads on to the start-finish straight. Here we are into that one, and I think this is going to be a similar sort of lap time to what we saw earlier.
So he was a little bit greedy. He pinched the curb on the inside. 27.7 lap time.
24.802. Yeah, that's not bad actually on tyres that have already been run. 124.802. I think he can be relatively happy with that.
It's coming out of turn 10. This is the area of the racetrack that we're going to have to keep an eye on, because during both the sprint and feature race, kicking up dirt and sand, that's going to get into your tyres. That will have an effect when you get up to turn 11 and 12.
Apparently they're bleeding the brakes on the Ireland car at the moment. You can see them just fiddling around the reservoirs at the front there. And brakes, of course, as you said, John, very critical.
Brakes are going to be a major factor here on Sunday afternoon, particularly in the feature race. And the reason that they're bleeding the brakes, I suspect, is that Adam Carroll might be saying, look, I've got a brake pedal that's been going away from me. Maybe there's a little bit of air. Maybe it just needs to have a little bit more of a fresh flush of brake fluid. The nose goes back on, the job's complete.
Sergio Jimenez done a good lap for Indonesia. He's gone quickest now for Indonesia, ahead of Australia and Lebanon. So well done to Sergio Jimenez. There he is, just making his way back in on a slowdown lap now, but he's gone fastest of the three cars to have set an initial pace. And a 124.667, he can be relatively happy with that. So first three cars might have set a time, but we're now waiting for the other 19 cars to decide to come out on track. And there's some smiles down there in the Indonesian pit. The boys are relatively happy, I think, with what Sergio Jimenez has done there. Chris Alajajian just a little bit slower, couldn't quite match the time of either Indonesia or Australia. But remember, this session is to a certain extent more information gathering than real time setting, because they're on tyres that are not their best. They do all have one set of tyres to use for the final segment of qualifying.
And there's a guarantee that when you put a new set of tyres on, that you're going to pick up certainly the best part of half a second, maybe a bit more. In fact, some of the sages down in the pit lane were anticipating massive amounts of time gain on a new set of tyre, particularly once the track had cleaned up. But that hasn't been the case, and to some degree, with all the events that are taking place here, it's a matter of cleaning up the track almost as much as it is as getting the benefit of a new set of tyres. And we're looking at Sergio Jimenez for Brazil. As we look now at the exit of the pit lane, Adrian, the second of those two cars for Pakistan.
A little bit of work going on at Team France as well. That looks like more of a setup change that they're just completing. So still thought going into how they can make these cars a little faster. The times we're seeing, the fastest ever single-seater times around this Duval circuit. There was a demonstration done here by Roberto Moreno in a Panos Champ car last season, a 123.612, but we're beneath that. So these are the quickest single-seater cars, the quickest cars, in fact, at all to have ever lapped this Duval track.
So fairly comfortable sitting in the pits, Neel Jani in the Team Switzerland car. As we look at Team USA, Jonathan Summerton. So it comes out of turn 14, nice clean exit, gets a good run across start-finish line, up to about 264 or 65 kilometres per hour, depending on which way the wind's blowing. And right now, it doesn't look like it's blowing in any direction because there ain't any wind.
It's quite still, isn't it? Yeah, very still, sort of fairly sultry, warm, pleasant day it is here in Zhuhai in southeastern China. Brand new venue for A1GP World Cup of Motorsport, and it's providing a testing venue in qualifying. It's a technical circuit. You've got to get every element of it right. You cannot afford to make even tiny mistakes, otherwise you'll disappear down the starting order.
So up into back, the most distant point from the pit lane, back of the circuit up at turn 7, and comes down, you go through turn 8 again. It really isn't a corner, it's just the merest of curves, then back on the brakes again. Turning into brake 9, one of those corners You don't want to brake too late, you want to get the car settled, because it's about speed off turn 9 and the carrying of that speed through 10, and a clean exit for Jonathan Summerton, not running the curb as much as we've seen others do.
No, that's right. He's going quite well, but at the moment, out there at the same time, India and maybe New Zealand are both going a fraction faster than USA. There's Narain Karthikeyan for India. This is going to be an interesting lap. Let's see where it puts him. A little bit of a wiggle through the last corner. He's fastest of this group at the moment, 1:24.4.
But watch Summerton. I think this will be a quicker lap again. And it's not taking just behind India, and about, 0.02 of a second difference between India and the USA. Italy pops up into 5th place, but that time's a 1:25.221, and that is not going to be at the races at all.
Now let's see what New Zealand can do on this next run. New Zealand may well challenge India for that new fastest time. Meanwhile, Pakistan also on track. Pakistan, that's a little bit further round. So we'll see where this puts him. Actually, no, New Zealand's just crossed the line in 3rd place, so below India and the United States into 3rd position. Team Pakistan, see whether... Certainly Adam looks a bit happier with the car here this afternoon than he was this morning. Seems to be struggling a bit.
Oh, well, you say that, and he just goes and almost throws it off. Of course, running on tyres, okay, they're not a brand new set of tyres. They've done...
But he's gone fastest, John. He's gone fastest.
24.378 ahead of India, ahead of the highly rated Team USA, Jonathan Summerton. Well, congratulations to Adam Khan. He certainly took the opportunity and seized it. So he's put himself provisionally. 9 cars have completed a flying lap. Brazil about to come across now. And Brazil, again, whether they put them... Well, they should be quickest. In fact, they're only in 4th place, indicating maybe that Pakistan used their new set of tyres now. You would not have anticipated them being ahead on used tyres, certainly of India, USA or Brazil.
No, that... we just heard from the pit lane, they were on new tyres, so that does explain it a little bit, but nonetheless, that's a good effort from Adam Khan.
Yes, and there, I mean, just running wide, they'd understeer in the corner, you can see that's why he ran wide. That probably cost him the best part of 2 or 3/10 of a second. And he could have potentially just nudged into the very highest of the 1 minute 23 second laps.
So Khan, brave, committed, controlled. He managed to hang on to that big moment out of the final corner. And he has gone fastest for the moment, using the new tyre in this session to best effect, while most teams are using their older tyres for this one. Now let's see what Loïc Duval for Team France can do. Competitive in that first session of qualifying, but not challenging quite as much as we expected for a front row starting position, bearing in mind how fast he had been this morning in particular. That's pretty neat and tidy. He goes a bit wide there, but they also
took
do
the Khan line on the exit of 4, just sort of literally shortcutted the car across those eco-concrete blocks that allow nature to sprout through them, but still offer up a reasonable amount of grip. And since pretty much it's a bit of straight line acceleration, shaving the corner might also shave a 1/10 or 2 off the lap time.
Only 5 minutes to go in this session, and then we'll be into the final session with lots of new tyres available to the teams. Remember, the reason that they don't have new tyres for every session, there's a limit to the number of tyres they're allowed to use throughout the weekend. 5 sets of tyres for each and every team. It's the same for everybody, but it does mean that tyre management is crucial.
France just about might sneak ahead of Pakistan. They did have the fastest sector time in Sector 1, they had a personal best in Sector 2. Now coming down to this final sector, into the infamous turn 14, and let's watch and see. Rides the curb fraction in the inside. There's a danger of doing that because it tends to throw the car way out to the left. France does go quickest by fractions of a second on a 24.355.
Yeah, he's only 23 thousandths faster than Pakistan, but remember, Pakistan used the new tyre to their advantage. So remember, earlier on, we had that 123.2. So we're about a second away, John, at the moment from what Germany did, and there is Germany now, in that qualifying for the sprint race. And Germany's going well again here on their used tyres.
Yeah, again, fastest in that first sector, taking that away from France, who are currently fastest of all of the 11 teams that are recorded at the time. Germany now up into turn 11, and Michael Ammermüller really having got the taste for qualifying and understanding much more about A1GP than he did when he came to Malaysia, and also probably a lot more calm and settled in himself, knowing that he doesn't have to try and prove everything to the world in one event, that given the opportunities which he's getting, he is capable of being 24.093, almost 0.3 of a second quicker than France.
That's a very good lap on the used tyres. It would have been enough to put him in the top 10, even off the sprint race grid, so that's impressive. Canada about to cross the line, going 10th quickest. Rob Wickens there, across the line, competitive. Let's see what Ireland does. Adam Carroll definitely one to watch. He was so fast in the first segment. He's gone into 6th place. Well, he's building up to his final run on new tyres, and he will be challenging up near the front again, I'm sure.
You get the sort of sense that a number of the teams, they know that the used tyre, the tyre they've used for one of the qualifying segments, as we watch Rob Wickens cutting it, was pretty wide in the exit of turn 14. But nevertheless, you've got to go out and get the information. There was the shortcut that we saw Loïc Duval take, and it looked a bit of bumpy ride again, dragging lots of dust back onto the circuit.
Yeah, that's about as wide as anybody's been through there. And you noticed he was actually on the grass under braking for that one as well, let alone coming out of the corner. So there we are, that was a little earlier. David Garza here from Mexico, new boy for the team. He earned this opportunity testing in South Africa, in fact, for the team. They were impressed with what he did, and now David Garza, who's been racing Formula Atlantic in the States, has got his big A1GP opportunity. Well, he didn't struggle in that first session. He was ended up last for the sprint race. Let's see whether he can improve things a little bit for this one.
And another driver just nudging the curb on the inside of the final turn, comes across the line, does a 125.2, puts him in 14th place.
Yep, so he's got one behind him at the moment. That's Lebanon, one behind. So he may be able to stay off the last place, but there's still another segment of qualifying to go. We're just about a minute and a half to go in this session, and we're not expecting any major changes. Neel Jani for Switzerland, well, he should be competitive. He's, of course, qualifying on the front row for the sprint race, and he's always competitive. There's James Robinson, his race engineer. These two establishing a good working relationship. And let's see, and he's just gone out onto his hot lap, in fact, so the time is now ticking away, and we'll follow his progress. Neat and tidy
and he needs
driver.
a benchmark. He's got just ahead of him the Netherlands, so again, very neat on the exit. Neel Jani just putting the car precisely as you'd expect. The Swiss doesn't overrun coming through turn 3. We've seen other drivers running much wider, a lot more economical in every respect as we look now at the Netherlands up into turn 7. Again, Jeroen Bleekemolen probably not as Swiss-minded, being a Dutchman, as Neel Jani is, but nevertheless, 2 cars on hot laps. Netherlands ahead on the track, but the Swiss ahead in terms of segment times by 0.35 whatever of a second.
Yeah, and also Great Britain had a good first sector time as well, so they do seem to have got their car working a little better.
Well, in fact, they were the quickest of those 3 cars by not hundreds but thousands of seconds. So Team GBR, as we look at Switzerland coming through turn 10, that's the reverse angle of the exit of the corner up into turn 11.
Yeah, this is tight. This is where you've got to concentrate on getting a good exit out of here, build up the speed, build up the momentum as early as possible, head down towards turn 14. That's the Dutch car through there first, and Jeroen Bleekemolen looking to put in a decent lap here to get himself ready for the final segment of qualifying. He's only 11th, but I think Switzerland will be up near the front. They go second again. It's Germany, Switzerland, as we saw in qualifying for the sprint race. So we're going to have a duel between those two. China's gone third, so that's another impressive performance.
Great Britain has gone second as we talk.
Yeah, that's good. That's more like we were expecting from Great Britain and Oliver Jarvis, and suddenly there it is. He's up to second on used tyres. Can they convert that into performance on new tyres?
Well, let's say that's going to be the first time this weekend. I think Ollie Jarvis will have had a smile on his face, because it's not been easy. It's first time he's been in an A1GP where he's also not been the rookie driver, gaining that advantage of the extra 2 25-minute segments of practice on Friday morning. But gradually they've worked, they've got that time and car together, and ending up 7,000th of a second behind Michael Ammermüller, who currently is provisionally fastest.
South Africa's gone 7th, the Czech Republic has gone 11th quickest, so Germany on top once again. All 22 cars have now set their times. Germany from Great Britain, Switzerland in 3rd, then China, France and Pakistan, and that was a good effort from Pakistan. Interesting strategy, obviously different to everyone else, but Adam Khan and the engineers, and of course very experienced engineer Andy Miller there working with Adam, they've said no, we're going to use our new tyres, we're going to get a decent time in and then just see what everybody else does.
Well, I think doing so will give Adam Khan the confidence. That's been one of the benefits as we look back and see Oliver Jarvis again taking the French route. I don't think it's in his Michelin guide as to how to get around this racetrack, but certainly very effective for Team GBR, and not quite as effective for France, but certainly that lap from Team GBR, the first time they've really, I think, sensed what they've got, the potential of their car. We've seen it in rounds, particularly earlier in the season. Oliver Jarvis, naturally fast, very smooth, and smoothness is something that will pay a dividend when it comes to sprint and feature races on Sunday.
Well, let's see how they line up provisionally for the feature race, but there are likely to be a lot of changes to this. It's Germany's Michael Ammermüller, from Great Britain's Oliver Jarvis, then Switzerland's Neel. Once again, Kung Fu or Frankie Chang is up there for China, Loïc Duval for France. Pakistan, an excellent effort there from Adam Khan, but using the new tyres, he'll have to sit and see where that puts him in the ultimate grid. Adrian Zaugg for South Africa, ahead of Narain, Karthikeyan and Jonathan Summerton. Then for Ireland, it's Adam Carroll. For the Czech Republic, Tomáš Enge. And for Brazil, Sergio Jimenez. Further down the order at the moment, it's Jonny Reid. Again, struggling. You know, you'd expect to see more there from New Zealand, even though it was the used tyres they were on. Sergio Jimenez, 14th, the Indike 15th for Australia, Bleekemolen for the Netherlands 16th, Canada's Rob Wickens in 17th, Malaysia's Alex Yoong in 18th place, ahead of Portugal, Italy, Mexico and Lebanon. Well, one session is left to go now, and this is going to be the determining session, of course, for the feature race. We've had the sprint race grid confirmed already, with Germany and Switzerland leading the way there. But what's going to happen when we get into this final segment of qualifying? That's the big question. Who's going to come out on top? Well, there's no doubt that Germany, Switzerland are going to be up there. Maybe Great Britain are going to be challenging this time. Ireland, of course, surely they're going to be challenging for pole, as they were in the sprint race qualifying. We're on for another tremendous tussle here.
Well, deep in thought and concentration, and Oliver Jarvis sitting back, comfortable in the knowledge that he has given us a very good performance for that second place, but equally Germany has done so, and Switzerland right behind, so it's a bit of a Franco-British Swiss sandwich, baguette, whatever.
Yeah, absolutely, Swiss roll perhaps. But the Swiss, of course, coming in...
That's a jammy thing to say.
Oh, dear. They're coming in leading this one, aren't they? Leading the championship at the moment from France. Now, if you look at the moment at where France are for the sprint race, Switzerland certainly have the edge, because Switzerland will be starting on the front row and France down in 7th. So France, if anybody, needs to really get something out of this feature race qualifying session to sort of keep the points pressure on Switzerland.
Can't quite work out what we're looking at, or
a little bit of traditional architecture, I think, in this part of the world. Maybe it's hidden in the trees.
Yep.
We've got some lovely scenery around here. We've got sort of mountains in the background. We're almost on the beach as well. It's a lovely part of the world to be. The Zhuhai town, which is a relatively modern town, I would say. Lots of nice new buildings and high rises, but it's got a nice feel to it.
Well, I came through Zhuhai in the early 90s when I was visiting Macau for the Formula 3 race, and to say it was a one-horse town in those days is a slight exaggeration, but it has grown. I mean, it is 1.5 million, I think, population, but minute by Chinese standards, but it is a very modern city. There are some of the views of the city, and everything is just progressing. China is just unbelievable, an unbelievable country to be in with this rate of development.
Green flag, and we get underway with the final segment of qualifying here at Zhuhai in China. And we've got the fans waiting to see what their car in particular will do. Currently it's 4th provisionally on the grid for the feature race, and it's 4th on the grid definitely for the sprint race. So it's very good for the host nation. They're looking for their podium finish, of course. They've had one in their history in A1GP, but they would love to have one on home turf. And now we're into the real tussle, the mental tussle, also the engineering tussle between the teams to just extract a few thousandths of a second more out of each and every car. Satria Hermanto for Indonesia, onto circuit early again. Meanwhile, Great Britain waits. They're going to sit there for a little while, I think, with the tyre blankets on before they head out on track.
Well, a little bit of poker going to be played by a lot of teams. No one wants to show their full potential until the last opportunity. But as we well know, the last opportunity could be the wrong time to be out on track. So we've seen Germany wisely come out pretty much in the middle of each of these 15-minute segments. There's a little bit of the festive spirit. It's all around the hotel. All the staff in the hotel I'm staying in are all dressed up in Santa Claus outfits. We were meant to do a bit of a Santa Claus thing, weren't we, Ben? I was going to be Father Christmas.
That's right, I gather it's rather gone by the wayside, but so my elf times are going to have to wait for another opportunity. There we are, looking inside the South African pit. Adrian Zaugg still not really getting anything that they want, although he went up to 7th in that one, so that's a bit more potential being shown. And here we are, Ian Dyke, once again, he likes being out there early. They send him out there early each time, and he's going to be the first to establish the benchmark on a new set of tyres, with the temperatures having changed a little bit, just warmed up perhaps a fraction more rubber down on the circuit now, but also a bit of dust in places where cars have been off. So Difficult to know how that's going to work out until we see him come round at the end of the lap, and we'll try and compare it to the time, his best time from the first 2 segments of qualifying, which was a 1:24.770 up to turn 7. One of the tightest corners, neat and tidy through there. No problems at all for the ex-motocross racer and Formula 3 driver in Australia. Of course, we've got the New Zealand and Australia events coming up on the calendar, not far off now, because there's a Christmas break, and then we're all off to New Zealand, to Taupo, and then off to Sydney, to the Eastern Creek Raceway, where Australia will be on home turf.
Yes, I suppose you might call it a mini Tasman series, a race series that was held in the winter time down in New Zealand and Australia, decades ago now, and it was a great opportunity for racing drivers who didn't have very much to do in the winter time to go down and spend time in 2 lovely countries.
Well, Australia now heading down towards the final corner. This is Ian Dyke, likeable young man who always gives it 110% in terms of ability behind the wheel, in terms of really trying to get the best time he can. Across the line he goes. It's a 1:24.538, and that sort of time is only a couple of tenths quicker than the time he set this morning, but he's obviously gone quickest for the moment because no one else has set a time in this session. So he's fastest for now, but for how much longer? Let's see whether Indonesia is any quicker than that. No. So it's Australia quickest, Indonesia second, and again these 2 nations the first out there.
So one suspects that those first 2 nations out probably ran new sets of tyres in the third. That's the first of the qualifying segments for this feature race, and others chose to hold them back. And let's hope we're going to see in qualifying the first 1:23 lap. We've seen it in the sprint qualifying. We're waiting to see it in the feature qualifying.
Yeah, that's right. So there is the situation at the moment on the times. The Germany ahead of Great Britain, with Switzerland, China, France and Pakistan all up there, but that's going to change a lot with the new tyres on the cars, ready to go, being preheated as they are at the moment. Bring them up to temperature so that when they get out on circuit they can begin to push. Even on their outlaps, they need to push on their outlaps to get the tyres working at their best. Adam Khan, now he went for the new tyres in that last sector of qualifying, and that's why he's currently lying in a provisional 6th. What he would like now is a bit of rain, because if it rained right now, which is completely unlikely, then of course he would be 6th on the grid for the feature race. Perfect.
So if he could make rain happen, he would make an absolute fortune. There's more chance of being struck by lightning, I would say, than getting wet. And anyway, a lot of work going on in the Team Ireland garage. Adam Carroll, the 2 of them. Adam Carroll talking to the engineers, and they're really keen to see a further top 3 position for the feature race. They're currently in 3rd place, 2nd row of the grid for the sprint race, but on that front row would be absolutely ideal.
Well, they're certainly leaving us waiting here at the moment for the big guns to be coming out on circuit. There's only 10 minutes to go in this final segment of qualifying, and we're still waiting for anyone other than Australia and Indonesia to set a lap time here. So it's going to be frantic out there on track when they do all emerge. But we'll just have to wait and see exactly what happens. Canada sitting and waiting, the Netherlands, the Dutch car there, waiting for their opportunity to come out on circuit as well. Jeroen Bleekemolen, who will line up in 8th place on the grid for the sprint race. He'll be looking to move up a few positions from there, I am sure, to try and make things a little easier in the feature race. Loïc Duval for Team France. A little disappointed to be perhaps only 7th provisionally on the grid in the sprint race. Sorry, not provisionally, that is a set one. He is 7th on the grid for the sprint race, so he needs more as well. Malaysia, only 17th on the grid for the sprint race. Where will they end up for this feature race? We'll have to wait and see. It's all going to emerge fairly soon, I think. Team USA there, Jonathan Summerton preparing to get into his car. And the USA team that managed to score their first points of the season last time out in Malaysia, thanks to a 10th place finish. There was a tremendous tussle for that 10th place and the final point, in fact, in Malaysia. A couple of penalties were applied too, which did affect things, the outcome to a certain extent. Here we go then, John, here it starts, because Germany now pole sitters for the sprint race, and currently up there in provisional pole for the feature race are heading onto the circuit.
Yes, and I think wisely too, just under 8.5 minutes of the session remaining, going out and drawing with them 2 or 3 other nations to get out on the track, rather than waiting with 5 minutes or less to go. and the majority of the field will try, certainly the majority of the front running, or the teams that are likely to put themselves in the front 5 rows of the grid, are going to go out. So Germany again opting to go out. First car of a group of 4 or 5. It'll be a pretty clear track by the time he returns onto start-finish straight to start his final qualifying segment for the feature race here this afternoon.
Now, we reckon they should all be on new tyres except for Pakistan. That's the only nation that we can think of that might not be, and in fact they might be if they didn't use both sets in the first segments of qualifying. So pretty much everyone's going to be on a brand new set of tyres. It's ideal now to go out there and set a lap, but Germany have decided to go for it relatively early. Well, there's only 7.5 minutes to go in the session, so everybody's going to be coming out pretty soon now. How dusty is the track? How dirty is it? That could play a factor.
There is dust out there. You saw a little bit on the exit of turn 10. The concern will be, will anybody go out from this point on, just before Michael Ammermüller comes down to the final turn and starts his final qualifying lap of the afternoon? And we haven't heard any other cars go down pit lane. Certainly we haven't seen any others, so it looks like Michael Ammermüller is going to have what he would hope to have had, a clear track and a clear lap, just to focus on one thing and one thing only. That's consolidating his current provisional pole for the feature race.
So can he make it 2 out of 2? That's the question. It could all depend, well, it will all depend on this lap now for Michael Ammermüller and for Team Journey. The reigning World Cup of Motorsport title holders are back on form here, there's no doubt about it. Can they make it 2 out of 2? It was something that Nico Hülkenberg did achieve a couple of times, not that many times. He wasn't always on pole position, Hülkenberg. He came through to win a lot of races. Let's see how Ammermüller gets on here.
Well, looks like it's very close between Ammermüller and Team India, Narain Karthikeyan, in terms of split times. And India actually have sneaked the fastest sector time by about just under 0.2 of a second from Germany. So it's actually Narain Karthikeyan is getting the job done in sector 1, and 27.3 the sector time for Germany. That is not good enough.
No, that is interesting. Not quite the ideal start to the lap from Ammermüller for Germany, and it may not be the double for Team Germany here. India obviously going very, very well indeed, and it means that maybe some of the others will have potential. Perhaps going out first was not the best thing of this group. He did have to clean a path a little bit, and maybe some of the others were on a bit of a clearer track. On the other hand, he's had no traffic to deal with. Here he goes then. Germany go about to cross the line. It's a 1:23.890, but India's about to go quicker. India on provisional pole.
23.767, and that just consolidates what we saw on timing and scoring, that India were quicker in that first segment, and they maintained that advantage. So it is now India provisionally quickest, Germany second on a 23.8, somewhat half a tenth of a second behind, and Great Britain, Switzerland, China, France, all yet to complete a lap. Ireland are out, Canada's out, Mexico and New Zealand are all out.
What a good lap from Narain Karthikeyan, but will it be enough? We think, we would expect, looking at the times from earlier on, to be a bit low and down in the 1:23s. The 1:23.2 was pole for the sprint race. We're on 1:23.7, but here's a guy who could show us. Adam Carroll for Team Ireland.
Comes across start-finish line. He's really got to get his head down. He's on the second row of the grid for the sprint race. He wants to be on the front row of the grid. He wants to be on pole position for his nation, for himself, and to take Ireland at some point to victory, be it a sprint or a feature race victory.
So first corner's been dealt with safely and securely. Now up through 3 and 4, heavy braking here. How wide will he go on the exit of this? Oh, that's pretty good. He doesn't run right over the concrete on the outside this time. And split time okay, but not enough to challenge India.
No, that's done just by over a tenth of a second, so into turn 7.
But Canada's on a good one. Canada only a few thousandths slower than India to the first sector point. So these two teams, Ireland and Canada, that run in a tandem together in the pit lane and share information on track at the same time, but Canada actually a fraction quicker than Ireland.
And in fact, New Zealand are also quicker than Ireland. New Zealand much further down, of course, only in 14th position, but this is not the lap that Ireland had dreamt of.
Well, at the moment, India's looking incredibly good. As these guys get to their second sector points, none of them at the moment look to be quite challenging that time that's been handed down by Narain Karthikeyan. Let's see what happens in the remaining runs. We've still got some quick cars to go, like Switzerland, Great Britain, France in particular, and there's a good run through the final corner. The car really twitching around for Adam Carroll, but Ireland goes only 5th.
It's an improvement, but not sufficient. But Canada's gone ahead. Canada's leapt up into 4th place behind Great Britain, but ahead of Switzerland. But Great Britain, Switzerland still sitting back in the pit lane. So they've got, with 3 minutes exactly remaining, as we look now at Neel, Jani preparing to leave the garages. Team New Zealand comes across start-finish line. Up to 4th place, 24.114. Jonny Reid has dragged something out, but too many more competitive cars behind. He'll be lucky to remain in the second row of the grid.
Well, this is very interesting. Ireland not gaining much on the new set of tyres. That is a surprise there for Adam Carroll. Canada gained a reasonable amount, but not down into the 123s. A bit of dust has been kicked up there.
We didn't see which car that was, but Brazil comes across start-finish line. Goes 8th, now goes 9th, because Lebanon has got ahead of Brazil.
Wow, where did that come from? Chris Alajajian, Lebanon.
Identical times, 124.328, but Lebanon must have got that time in just ahead of Brazil. Doesn't look like it here to me, because in fact Brazil was going across the line just ahead of Lebanon.
8th fastest for Lebanon. That's a brilliant effort from Chris Alajajian. There are cars behind who are likely to improve, but if he could stay somewhere near the top 10, Lebanon could be on for their first ever points in A1GP here this weekend. That really would be exciting, but a long way to go yet. We've still got plenty of fast cars to come out.
Well, Switzerland and Team GBR are both out on track. We're waiting for France. They've just now left the pit lane. USA's left the pit lane with Malaysia and Portugal, the two nations. Malaysia's gone out, and well, Portugal's going to go out now, because if it doesn't, it'll never get across start-finish line before the checkered flag comes out.
Now, Netherlands could spring a surprise, sort of driver, sort of team that we always know are competitive. They've had one pole position already this year. That was at Brno in the Czech Republic. Wasn't quite as quick as he'd hoped in the sprint race qualifying. Ended up 8th place, did Jeroen Bleekemolen. But now he's on a lap and seeing whether he can put it somewhere further up on the grid for the feature. China on a lap at the same time. Oh, but the first split is not great for the Netherlands. As you can see, 0.3 of a second down on the fastest to the first sector point. That's not enough to challenge for pole, and India again can breathe another slight sigh of relief, but no, they can't, because China looking very strong, within 1/10 of the sector time that India set, so China could be in with a shout here.
So all very busy indeed around the racetrack. The Netherlands come out the way up. This is up through turn 10, but Switzerland fastest sector time of anybody in this segment of qualifying. That's the first sector, 2 more to go.
And Great Britain almost the same time as Switzerland, John.
Yes, indeed. Well, those two teams, two nations, Great Britain currently on the second row of the grid in 3rd place, Switzerland currently on the 3rd row of the grid in 6th place. So these two are going to be battling, one suspects, certainly for the honours for the second row of the grid. Possibly Switzerland, as on what we have seen, could sneak a front row grid position.
Netherlands only 15th, disaster.
And we don't know, 24.460.
And China, where's China going to be? They've qualified 4th for the sprint race. Where will the host nation be on the grid for the feature race, with a few more improvements still to come? They go 3rd. Good effort, but Switzerland and Great Britain are likely to better that. They're on a quick lap at the moment, Switzerland in particular. Here comes Neel Jani, the star of Malaysia. Is he going to take pole position for the feature race? Yes, he does, by 0.3 of a second. And Great Britain goes 2nd. Great Britain goes 2nd, India is pushed down to 3rd, and Germany, pole sitter for the sprint race, is pushed down to 4th.
Very, very strong run from Switzerland and Great Britain. Well, there you can see on the Swiss pit wall, James Robinson, Max Felty, they're delighted. But there's not much more around. USA and South Africa. That's good. France is the one team that can challenge as they come across, but it's not going to be.
I don't think it's going to be quite enough, John. Let's see where he goes.
Goes 4th.
4th quickest. He goes quicker than Germany. Malaysia comes through in 8th, and the USA is 7th. That's good. That's very good from those two nations. USA 7th, Malaysia at last qualifying reasonably well this season, where they should be, where we would expect them to be. And that's a good effort from Portugal as well. João Urbano, who we were saying earlier this morning seemed to be struggling a little bit in the A1, because suddenly he's 12th. And that was a very, very good lap there from João Urbano in 12th position. He's ahead of Ireland, but the other standout effort from this session is Lebanon. Lebanon have qualified in 14th position, and that really is a superb effort from Chris Alajajian. And I think that is a very, very impressive effort from him. So well done to Chris Alajajian. He's ahead of Brazil as well, and the Czech Republic in there in 16th place. But it's Switzerland that will start from pole position in the feature race, after Neel Jani again has performed. He did it in Malaysia with both pole positions. He didn't manage it in the first segment. He ended up second. Well, only one off the top, and he's gone pole position for the feature race. Great Britain, though, have really brought themselves up throughout the weekend. And that's a real education, if you like. It shows how, by working with your engineers, by working with the team, how you can move up the order. They seem to be struggling Friday. They got better in that first session of qualifying. They were 5th on the grid for the sprint race. But Great Britain will start on the front row for the feature, ahead of India and France. And Narain Karthikeyan, that really is an outstanding effort. It's the first second row starting position for Team India in A1GP. It's their best ever qualifying performance for Narain Karthikeyan, for Team India, and for a little while there it looked as though they might actually be starting from pole position. So many congratulations. So many little stories involved in this qualifying session. France 4th, Germany 5th then. So from pole position in the sprint race, Germany dropped to 5th, and China in 6th place, then USA, as I say, in 7th place, Malaysia in 8th, South Africa in 9th, and New Zealand in 10th place. So a very exciting session all throughout that, and lots to look at when we get into the races tomorrow. There's no doubt about it. There's going to be some hard racing. Ireland, for example, all the way down in 13th place for the feature race, and yet they're starting well up on the grid in 3rd place for the sprint race. Makes you wonder how it can be so different. Look at the smile on Neel Jani's face. He is delighted with that. And
welcome back to Zhuhai, and qualifying is done and dusted now. The action is over, and the sprint race grid determined by sessions 1 and 2 looks like this. Michael Ammermüller then takes the place, 1:23.203 his time. Neel Jani leaping up onto that front row, just bumping the Irish team Adam Carroll back to 3rd place, along with the Frankie Chang. Very impressive, the Chinese driver there. Oliver Jarvis bringing something out of the bag there into 5th place. Tomáš Enge in 6th. Loïc Duval and Jeroen Bleekemolen, Narain Karthikeyan, Robert Wickens, Jonathan Summerton and Sergio Jimenez round out the top 12. Well, sessions 3 and 4 decided how they'll line up for the feature race. Here's confirmation of that. Neel Jani then going one better and grabbing pole position. Oliver Jarvis, what a drive. Comes in behind him on track. We'll see a little bit about that in a moment. Narain Karthikeyan getting a great 3rd place for Indonesia as well. Loïc Duval there in 4th place. That's your front 2 rows. Michael Ammermüller not managing anything great for the feature race qualifying, but just watch what he's capable of during the race, I'm sure. Kung Fu Yang there. Frankie Chang is in 6th place. Jonathan Summerton and Alex Yoong 7th and 8th. Adrian Zaugg and Jonny Reid. Jonny Reid getting a good time in, but still only in 10th place. Robert Wickens and João Urbano are in 11th and 12th places. Well, that's how it all looks, and what a frantic feature race situation. And timing, it would seem, was what it's all about, getting out onto that track at the right time.
Well, it's about the time management, and I think because the track was rubbering in lap after lap, they were all deciding to wait. The dilemma was, shall I wait for a clear track and get a nice, consistent lap together, or shall I risk going out in traffic in the last few minutes of the qualifying sessions?
It was all a little bit lively out there, wasn't it? I mean, I think Pakistan were the first to actually give us the graphic details of that, all over the curbs. And beyond. And beyond, Adam Khan. But Andy Miller is working with him. Andy Miller used to work for Dave Price Racing. He used to work for Jaguar Formula 1. A great engineer. I think he's wringing the best out of this car and this young man, Adam Khan. He's certainly very brave. Very accomplished driver he was in National Formula 3. He's only 23. Adam Carroll put in a good first session there as well, didn't he? He looked like he was going to manage something a little bit special in that sprint.
Well, he ended up 3rd fastest, and he'd been quickest in the first session here during the weekend, but I think they couldn't get their tyres to work properly on the new tyres in the feature race session. Bit of a shame he dropped back there.
Local man Frankie Chang trying very hard indeed, as we saw from some of the performances out there.
Yeah, well, Frankie, again, one of my favourites. He's certainly a very hot property, Keith, in terms of Chinese drivers. We could see him ending up as a Grand Prix driver and perhaps going all the way through. Especially with Ferrari's link next year, they'll be very keen to see, you know, the first Chinese Grand Prix driver, and he's about to show what he can do in the races.
Second session, Ammermüller stamped his authority on it, grabbed pole.
Yeah, I've got an issue with Ammermüller from the last race in Sepang. He didn't just commit an indiscretion once, he did it 3 times, and he was actually chucked out of the feature race at the end. He is bespectacled and everything, a bit short-sighted occasionally, so what's he going to do tomorrow?
Yeah, what is he going to do tomorrow? Well, we'll have plenty to talk about there. But Oliver Jarvis, turning the weekend round, I believe, session 3, looking very, very good indeed.
Yeah, it came from nowhere, and I think they've just tweaked that car in between the 2 sessions. I think they've managed their tyres very well indeed. So you've got a 5th place, and then he's got a front row of the grid for the feature as well. So he's well positioned.
Session 4, Narain Karthikeyan hanging on for India in that provisional pole position. I mean, it was a great drive from him.
I'm really pleased for Narain Karthikeyan. I mean, he spent 2 years as a test driver for Williams. Prior to that, he was a Grand Prix driver with the Jordan team. He's committed to A1GP in India. That was a great run for him, and that's their best ever grid position, 3rd. And they were about to start from the front row until they were mugged.
And they were mugged, but it was in unison, wasn't it? Because Neel, Jani of Switzerland and, of course, Oliver Jarvis as well of Great Britain were right under the wire at the last minute in this session.
But they're riding the crest of the wave, Switzerland, after the double hammer blow of them winning in Sepang and taking the pole positions. And Jani had taken pole position 2 years ago in Sepang as well. Here he is at a 2nd place and a 1st place. They are really going, I hate to say it, but they are looking like the clockwork cuckoo clock, aren't they?
Are you working out where your money's going for tomorrow yet?
Well, I think we're going to have the usual suspects up front, but I really am slightly worried about Ammermüller because he's a little bit wild and he's got to just calm down. So he needs to put it together and put it up on the podium.
Indeed. Well, coming up after the break, we'll be hearing from one of the true legends of motor racing when Emerson Fittipaldi tells us how much he's looking forward to testing the new Ferrari A1GP car next year.
I'm looking for testing the car. I think it'll be... I never test the A1 car. I'm sure it'll be a very sexy looking car. We'll have over 650 horsepower. I would say it'll be a beast. It'll be a car that will separate the men from the boys.
Sprint and feature race pole positions are now settled. Michael Ammermüller and Neel Jani will start off respectively from pole position tomorrow. Welcome back to the A1GP China, where we've just seen Germany and, of course, Switzerland qualify in pole position. We'll be hearing from them later. But now, from seat holder Emerson Fittipaldi of Team Brazil in a few minutes' time. But first, here's a reminder of where A1GP is going for the rest of the year. Season 3 of A1GP has already visited Zandvoort, Brno and Sepang. And on Sunday, it makes its race debut in Zhuhai City, China. After a 1-month Christmas and New Year break, A1GP makes a return to Taupo in New Zealand in mid-January. A1GP stays in the Southern Hemisphere with race 6 coming from the Eastern Creek circuit in Sydney. 2 weeks later, and one of the highlights of the season with the Dermot Street Race in South Africa. Next up, A1GP's only visit to the Americas and a return to Mexico City in March. The penultimate round comes from the state-of-the-art Shanghai circuit in China. And the season ends in style at the home of British motorsport, Brands Hatch, in the first weekend of May. In a moment, it'll be your chance to win prizes in our Team GBR competition. But first, congratulations to Miss Jed Hartshorn from Oldham, who's the winner from the Sepang weekend. If you'd like to join her and win this selection of Team GBR goodies, including signed T-shirts, programmes, caps and photos, all you have to do is listen carefully to Team GBR's Oliver Jarvis, who has this week's question.
I am no longer eligible to take part in the rookie session because I have competed in more than 4, 6 or 10 races.
So just to confirm Oliver's question, I'm no longer eligible to take part in the rookie sessions because I have competed in more than A, 4 races, B, 6 races or C, 10 races. To enter, just send us an email at a1gp@skysports.com or go online at skysports.com/A1GP. Please include your postal address and contact number. We'll announce the winner in our next show from New Zealand, but the correct answer and winner's name will appear on the website from January the 3rd. And don't forget, all winners throughout the season will automatically be entered into a draw to win a fantastic weekend's hospitality as guests of Team GBR at Brands Hatch next May. Now for our exclusive interview with Emerson Fittipaldi. Here's Georgie Thompson with more.
A new partnership has formed in the world of motorsport, with A1GP and Ferrari joining forces to create a new A1GP car for next season. Brazilian seat holder and double Formula One champion Emerson Fittipaldi has never driven a Ferrari racing car until now, and he's excited at being the first to give it a spin.
The new A1 Ferrari car would be what we call a dream Formula One car, because we don't have any electronic control. It will be all mechanical control. It will be like used to be the Formula One cars, Grand Prix cars on the 70s. Wider tire, wider track, a lot of grip from the mechanical part of the car, less aerodynamic. The car will be able to slipstreaming, overtake. You can follow the car next, you can be behind the other car and be able to overtake without any aerodynamic effect on the nose. And I think that's going to bring a much more competitive racing. I'm looking forward to test the car. I mean, it'll be great.
How excited are you about the prospect of working with a brand like Ferrari?
Well, being a Team Brazil and have a Ferrari on our own team would be fantastic. 60 years of racing heritage, of racing technology into our cars, so much tradition, so much, it's a magic name. Even the Indian Amazons heard about Ferrari. I think Ferrari is very, very enthusiastic doing the A1GP car. We are very strong in the Asia countries. We could be hosting what we call the Ferrari Challenge weekends.
How impressive is the Ferrari setup, the place where the A1GP Ferrari-powered car is going to be developed?
To build a car that will provide countries like Pakistan, India, China, South Africa, New Zealand, Brazil, to have their own Ferrari. I mean, we are going to have 24 Ferraris racing.
As Brazil continues to extend their lead and have set fastest lap as well.
Do you expect the standard of drivers to improve in A1GP as it attracts more people by being associated with Ferrari?
I think we'll make a new selection of drivers, because being close to a Formula One power, only mechanical control, you have to know how to put the power down. You have to know how to not to lock wheels and the braking, just feeling as a driver like used to be the driver. And I think we'll make a much more selection of drivers. I mean, who is going to be able to win A1GP will be a very special driver.
Has your vision for where you see A1GP's future lying changed since the emergence of the Ferrari deal?
I think just the image, the PR, since A1GP signed, I had many calls from the States trying to, can we make a race in America now? I mean, the Ferrari name is very big in America, very big in Canada, very big globally. And the people call me now. Can we do a race? We're looking forward to have a Grand Prix with A1 Ferrari cars. I mean, it'll be incredible.
If Emerson Fittipaldi is excited about it, you can bet it's going to be good. He's a fantastic guy, but the prospect of Ferrari joining us for next year, fantastic.
Well, it's an iconic brand. It's a legendary name. It's known throughout the world. And I think that's a fantastic elevation for the series, to be powered by Ferrari, to have Rory Byrne, the man who's designed all these successful Ferraris, overseeing the design of the new chassis. Obviously, I'd prefer it if it was the Lola chassis, because it's been strong and so on. But we have to see what happens on that. It certainly means that the series is up there and it's a pathway to Formula One. You look what's happened with Hülkenberg now. He's just signed to be a test driver next year for Williams. You can see a clear path emerging here, and you can see that the quality of the series, not just the racing, but the people clamouring to get A1 Grand Prix to come to their country as well, with Ferrari behind it, and that badge says everything. And then for a twice world champion, a legend of Indianapolis, to get so excited. And he never was a Ferrari driver, so he's getting his chance to drive a Ferrari, and at 60 years of age he's excited, so you can get excited too, Keith.
You're so kind, TJ. I won't take you to task on that one. A fantastic year in prospect next year, great rounds, great venues again, and a great mark backing it up.
Yeah, because if you look at races like Taupo, you look at races like South Africa, we get 80, 90,000 people. It shows just how great the series is and how attractive it is.
Indeed. Well, we expect 50,000 tomorrow, of course, for this round. But before we go, here's a reminder of what's coming up for all you motorsports fans here on Sky Sports tomorrow. We're back at 6 a.m. on Sky Sports 1 for all the action from race day in Zhuhai, with a recording of the sprint race followed by live and uninterrupted coverage of the feature race. And then from 1:30 p.m. on Sky Sports 2, don't miss the Race of Champions, coming to you live from Wembley Stadium and featuring a host of stars, including Michael Schumacher, Jenson Button, David Coulthard and Andy Priaulx. So a fantastic weekend of motorsport here on Sky Sports. Of course, Tony and myself will see you in the morning. We look forward to a great day of racing from Zhuhai in China. Do come back and see us tomorrow morning. Bye for now.
More sport, news and views at skysports.com.